Everybody to vote.
The Philippines or any other country similarly going through a difficult phase of transition will be unable to cope without effective political institutions. Strong political institutions make for effective governance. They do not guarantee the best policies, but they do ensure that the government will be able to make best policies of some kind and that will not be mired in endless standoffs. Research on the relationship between economic reform and democracy has shown that the strong political institutions are vital to accomplishing economic reform, while the social, cultural, and economic best policies challenge faced by new democracies are important. These challenges cannot be met without strong political institutions. The central difference between a parliamentary and a presidential system lies in the relationship between the executive and the legislative branches. The principal difference in a presidential or separation of powers system, the chief executive or the president is elected for a fixed constitutional prescribed term. He or she cannot be forced by the legislature to resign except for cause through the highly unusual and exceptional process of impeachment. Being directly elected by the people, the president has full claim to democratic legitimacy. The legislature is an assembly of elected representatives, similarly enjoying fixed and constitutionally prescribed terms. As such, it cannot be dissolved by the president and possesses as much democratic legitimacy as the executive. Because of these essentials, characterize Linz has described the presidential regime as a system of dual democratic legitimacy, to emphasize the autonomy of co-equal position of the executive and the legislative branches of government. Similarly to Stefan and Skakik have called the presidential regime a system of mutual independence. However, in a parliamentary system, the head of government, which is the prime minister, is chosen from within the ranks of legislature. He or she must therefore be supported by and is dependent upon the confidence of the legislature. The Prime Minister can fall and be dismissed from office by the legislature's vote of no confidence. On the other hand, he or she has the power to dissolve the legislature or call for new elections. Because of the need for close collaborations between the executive and the legislature for their mutual survival. Apart from these basic differences in the relationship between the executive and the legislature, here are other basic differences. In a parliamentary system, the executive is divided into a prime minister, who is the head of government, and a monarch, or president, who acts as head of state. Unlike a prime minister, a president or monarch has fewer powers and plays an important role as an above politics leader. He or she also plays a stabilizing and mediating role, especially in times of crisis. In the presidential system, on the other hand, the executive is undivided. The head of government is also the head of state. In a parliamentary government, the prime minister appoints the ministers, but because the government is a collegial body, he or she is merely primus inter pares, or they regarded as the first among equals. In a presidential government, on the other hand, the president is one-person executive. He or she also appoints the heads of governments, but they are his or her subordinates or alter egos. While ministers are drawn from the elected members of the legislature in a parliamentary system, department heads in a presidential system are constitutionally banned from becoming members of the legislature and vice versa. The president, unlike a prime minister, is not responsible to the assembly. Instead, he is the ultimate responsible to the constitution by the process of impeachment. The legislature in a presidential government is ultimately supreme over the other branches of government. It approves the appropriation of government, may impeach the president if the latter behaves unconstitutionally, and in the event of conflict with the judiciary may assert its will since it's the right to amend constitution. In a parliamentary system, the government and the assembly cannot dominate each other. The government depends upon the support of the assembly to stay in power, but if the government chooses, it may dissolve the parliament. The president executive, being directly elected by the whole body of electors, is directly responsible to the electorate. The parliamentary government, while being directly responsible to the assembly, is only indirectly responsible to the electorate. Finally, in a parliamentary system, the focus of power in the political system is parliament. In a presidential government, there is no focus of power since power is diffused in the three co-equal and coordinate branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. Parliamentarism is a culture born of Occident. Its historic twists and turns, peculiar only to Britain and a clutch of Western European countries. They had all gone through the Industrial Revolution and the Renaissance. They had all had the mindset that was distinctly European, an education that stamped the European ethos on one and all. It was they and only they that could make parliamentarism work, because they keyed to its bedrock culture, and the majority were God-fearing Protestants who cherished work and did not mind at all if this work made them rich and highly prosperous, so long as they made honest and God-fearing. Catholic dogma works the other way, and we Filipinos are heir to Catholic dogma. In attempting to answer the question, why is a parliamentary system a more appropriate framework of government compared to a presidential system in improving the capacity of government to function more effectively and in facilitating the consolidation of democracy? As basis for comparison, 5 capacities that are necessary for effective government in the Philippines will be used. These are the capacities to: first, prevent gridlock and promote consensus in the governance. Second, ensure stability and continuity in government. Third, strengthen accountability in governance. Fourth, promote cohesive and disciplined political parties. And fifth, to promote a broader-based and inclusive politics through a multi-party system. For sure, this is not an exhaustive list of capabilities. Limitations of time and space only permits a selection from a broad range of possible capabilities, which are critical at this stage of the country's development. Considerable weight is placed on the values and capabilities that Filipinos would like to see that characterize their government, and which lie at the heart of their dissatisfaction with the presidential system. The most bewildered feature of the presidential system is a good starting point.
This year, we just imported 205,000. That's less than 10%, and that's one area wherein I think we have excelled. And while everyone is watching us on the...
In conclusion, political institutions are critical in strengthening governmental effectiveness, particularly in developing countries like the Philippines. For this reason, political institution reforms cannot be and should not be taken for granted, but must be part and parcel of the comprehensive set of social, economic, and political reform program. A strong case can be made that a parliamentary form of government is a more effective and supportive revolutionary framework for developing effectiveness and governance, and for consolidating democracy. From both the standpoints of theoretical predictability and empirical evidence, the parliamentary form of government has shown, first, better ability to prevent gridlock and promote a cooperative relationship between the executive and the legislature in policy making. Second, greater capacity to ensure stability and continuity in governance and prevent military coups and extra-constitutional action by the executive. Third, better capacity to ensure accountability in governance. Fourth, greater propensity to create a political government conducive to the growth of coherent, disciplined, and strong political parties. And fifth, greater ability to encourage a multi-party setting and promote a more open, plural politics. While the distinct advantages of a parliamentary over the presidential system have been presented, we would like to look beyond the pure model of parliamentary towards what they call a new political system model. Semi-presidential system government, according, is a political regime of dominated as such as the constitution, which establishes and combines three elements. First, the President of the Republic is popularly elected by the people. Second, he wields substantial power. And third, their institution and dual executive system, where opposite the president there is a prime minister and ministers who exercise executive and government powers and remain in office only with the continual approval of the parliament. In conclusion, there is no question whether parliamentary or presidential is a good form of government, because even now that we're having presidential, they don't take the power of the president and have substantial power. The president itself passed the bills that are not supposed to be passed, which will be the main problem when the executive branch becomes the main power, because our problem here is the corruption within the lawmakers. With that, the government should first consider fixing the system before changing into any form of government, because the problem is within the system, not with the form of government.